In this video, I'm going to be reviewing volume number 6 of Tappei Nagatsuki's light novel series, Re:Zero. Hello everybody, and welcome to my review of volume number 6 of Tappei Nagatsuki's light novel series, Re:Zero, Starting Life in Another World. This one is released in English by Yen On. If you'd like to pick up your own copy, I do have links to Amazon as well as the book depository in the description down below. Now this one, of course, is the continuation of our story that started back in, well, I guess it was basically in volume number 4 that this arc began. This arc dealing, of course, with the whole beginning of the royal selection process, and in particular dealing with Subaru being involved in these events where he knows that the end point is a disaster at the Mathers mansion, which results in the deaths of pretty much everybody, even including the villagers outside, and Subaru has died a number of times trying to figure out how to overcome this event. In volume number 6, as we start, Subaru has, of course, revived after suffering his end at the hands of Betelgeuse and the witches' cult in volume number 5, an absolutely, gut-wrenching volume, in particular towards the end. And at this point, he knows that he just does not have the power to overcome the witch's cult. He knows that he and Rem alone really have absolutely no way of saving everybody when faced with the strength and abilities of the witch's cult. And he's still not exactly sure just how or what it was that killed him ultimately in the end. So in this book, we find Subaru deciding that he's going to take a course of action to try and find allies so that he can arrive at the mansion with a force of strength that could potentially overcome the witch's cult. Now, we have to know that Subaru is a hot-blooded, impetuous individual who is driven by this sense of righteousness, and because he has seen such horrors, he has this thought that everybody would want to avoid those things from happening, regardless of just how emotionally or physically involved with the situation they are. It's a naive belief, and one that is pretty mercilessly demonstrated to him time and time again. This book is at times painful. It is a series that has demonstrated previously, but continues in a fairly vicious manner in this book, to just show how weak Subaru is, and how as a character he has a lot of failings, and not just failings because he doesn't understand this world, but failings because he doesn't understand people, failings because he doesn't understand himself. And this book, this volume in particular, is a big part of that whole journey of self-discovery. I mean, we've sort of seen this building up as we've been going along in the series. We have seen Subaru have moments of true heroism. We have seen him be a good guy. And I think that we know that innately those things are in him. And so as an audience, you can't help but root for this character, even though he does have obvious flaws. But I think that what makes this series both great and painful at the same time, and this is what I've been saying, is this whole idea that in a lesser series, or, a series not as interested in growing its main character, it would probably find a way, a Deus Ex Machina kind of way of allowing him to circumvent his lacking abilities and to find a way to solve his problems. Doesn't happen really so much here. This book is pretty vicious in its tearing down of Subaru, and, reinforcing to him just what kind of world he's been born into and what kind of people inhabit that world, and that it opening his eyes to his naivety. And there is a lot of action in the book. Of course, there is quite a lot of character building, character interaction. We see a great deal of growth in the relationship between Subaru and Rem. You know, what's really funny to me is that recently I've read another ongoing series that I really enjoy, which is The Devil is a Part-Timer. That was volume number 9. And I said that it was surprising to me that in a volume with so much action and differing plots and everything else going on at the same time, that a conversation between two characters around a campfire could be one of the most riveting parts of the entire book. So then it came as kind of a surprise to me that in this book that is filled with a great deal of action, a great deal of moving parts, and these characters that all have sort of their own plots and ideas and plans and everything else that we're getting little snippets of here and there, that again, one of the most riveting parts of this book, one of the most pivotal and important moments in this book, is a conversation between Subaru and Rem just standing by the entrance to the city gates. That we can have two characters just interacting with each other in strictly dialogue. They're really not doing anything other than facing each other and talking. To me, like, when you can do that, it's demonstrating not only the ability of the author, but it's also demonstrating just how multidimensional these characters are and how invested in the characters I've become. To me, that conversation is a huge payoff on Subaru's character. It's a huge payoff even a bit on Rem's character and these feelings that she's been harboring for Subaru. And, you know, it's to me, in a way, like, you have Rem who, up to this point, you could have tried to say, well, you know, she's a bit naive, that, you know, this whole reason that she likes Subaru is because he came to her rescue, and it's, you know, it's just kind of like that starry-eyed, I see no fault in him just because of this one event. And that conversation goes a long way to sort of fix that impression and to sort of develop their relationship to a incredibly important and, I would say, meaningful place. There's a lot of honesty in that discussion, and it's something that I was really happy to see, because the painful progression of this book up until that point, you're just screaming at times for Subaru to realize things. You're just wanting so much for this character to achieve a level of self-awareness. And this conversation becomes a huge payoff and starts setting in motion the beginnings of the end of this book, that, of course, leaves on a bit of a cliffhanger, but at the same time, I would say leaves on a much more hopeful cliffhanger than, say, volume number 5. Volume number 5 was just so much darkness and pain and horror, really, and ended on very much that kind of a note. This book, we start off in that place. We start off in that pain and that discomfort, and seeing characters suffer, that we just wish and think to ourselves, there must be a way. There must be a way that they can get out of this. And yet it seems so hopeless. But then we have this conversation, and suddenly you feel like it's starting to come together now. And the book ends with sort of this cliffhanger of what are they going to do next? But at the same time, you start feeling that, okay, maybe now we're on the road to figuring things out. Like, we are in a better place with our characters at the end of this book. So in a lot of ways, I thought that this book was a really cool transition that way, that we could go from the horrors of volume number 5. We certainly don't leave that behind. It just continues. But as the book progresses and transitions and changes, that's where we start leading into a bit of hope and a bit of opportunity and hopefully a bit of chance for our characters, which is, I think, really where we need to get, because I don't know if I could handle the series continuing on that very dark and horrific kind of path that it was going on. As I said, the beginning of this book was at times very uncomfortable to read. And, I found myself taking little breaks here and there just because, man, like, you just get so bogged down and you find yourself, there's part of you, like I said, rooting for Subaru because you know that at heart, what he's trying to accomplish is right. But at the same time, you just know that he is so flawed and broken in so many ways. You're just like, oh, it's cringe-worthy at times. But again, volume number 6, this is just more demonstration of how, Tappei Nagatsuki is one of the better light novel writers that we're getting in English. Such evocative use of imagery, just the use of words and the use of simile to describe feelings and, how broken characters are inside. I mean, it's pretty heavy stuff and it's very well written, which, you could not write Subaru's journey as it is here without being half decent as a writer, because otherwise it would just come off so poorly, but it doesn't. And the same thing with Rem, as a character, it's so easy to write her off in some ways, but you get those visions of depth of her. You see her in a new light in a lot of ways through this book. And even the characters that initially part of you has this sort of revulsion against them because of just how callous they seem to be. At the same time, as you progress through the book, you start seeing what it is they're trying to say. And you start realizing that it isn't so much that they are horrible, evil people, but just that they're just not being approached in the right way. It's just such a good book. It's so well written and the characters so well fleshed out and developed. And, this whole journey of Subaru and, I love that we're at book 6 and the whole ReZero element of the title, starting at 0, comes into play in this novel finally in a way that is, well, I mean, it's so excellent, and, is finally this moment that I feel like I've been waiting a long time for, and it was a really great payoff. So volume number 6 of ReZero, another excellent volume in this series. Like I said, it's certainly not going to be comfortable to start off, but man, it's got a great payoff at the end. I am continually being blown away by, like I said, these series that I've been reading as ongoing series that suddenly now are just having these very simple conversations with no action, nothing really going on, and yet they're riveting, and I just find myself so entranced by them and so invested in them, and they just change so much about the series and about where the series is going to go. And it's phenomenal, really. Like I said, ReZero, probably one of the better, if not best, written light novel series that we're getting in English. Just such good use of the words, of imagery. Part of me wants to say that maybe it's also the translator, but I think it's also about the source material that you're working with that sort of sets it that bar above. Series that I really highly recommend. Obviously, it's not going to be for everybody. There is quite a bit of darkness in this series, quite a bit of horror elements, which I kind of found surprising, but it's increasingly grown as we've gone along. A bit of gore and everything else. Like, it is not a light, fluffy series or isekai by any standard, which is really, I think, what makes it stand out. And like I said, it continues to stand out because of its ability to pay attention to the mental state of its characters and to describe those in ways that are meaningful and make sense given the situations that the characters are in, and its ability to not, coddle the main character or allow Deus Ex Machina to just allow the character to overcome their shortcomings. Instead, those shortcomings are just mercilessly pointed out, and it's really up to the character themselves to try and overcome them. So, highly recommended. Another volume that I'm absolutely loved. I didn't give it 5 stars in case some of you point that out on Goodreads. I think that was more of an emotional response to it. Because like I said, the beginning, I was kind of like, oh man, it's painful. I would have given it 4.5 if they'd allow half stars, but yeah, it's still excellent volume, still a series that I'm really, really loving, and I'm very much looking forward to volume number 7. For my next review, I'm going to be reading a new series from J-Novel Club, and that's volume number 1 of Me, a Genius? I was reborn into another world, and I think they've got the wrong idea. Man, that's going to be killer title for the video. But anyway, it's a brand new series from them. There's only 3 volumes, so it's a short series, but it sounds kind of funny and cute and entertaining. Plus, it's got the main blonde girl there is Canadian, supposedly. So as a fellow Canadian, I'm kind of curious to see just how a Canadian girl is being presented in a Japanese light novel. So that's going to be my next review. So if you love light novels and you're brand new to the channel, you should consider subscribing. I do 2 to 3 reviews every single week, as well as a weekly countdown of the top 10 best-selling light novels in Japan. Thank you so much for joining me in this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Till then, bye-bye for now.